She pulled the trigger, but nothing happened. He winked and said, "Try turning it on first." That failed assassination attempt. It started the most dangerous love story in galactic history, because when a human smuggler and a half-alien bounty hunter touch the same ancient artifact, something impossible begins growing inside her. Something that every military force in the galaxy will kill to possess, or kill to destroy. But what happens when that something decides to protect its own family? The rain hammered Arcadia Verge like bullets against armor, plating each drop exploding into steam the moment it hit the superheated metal of the rooftop vents. Cal Riven stood perfectly still in the downpour, his dark jacket already soaked through, watching the woman across from him with the kind of casual interest you'd reserve for checking the weather. She was beautiful in that dangerous way that made smart men stupid and stupid men dead. Tall, lean, with skin that seemed to shimmer between human pale and something else entirely. Something that caught the neon glow from the city's towering spires and reflected it back like polished chrome. Her hair was midnight black, slicked back by the rain, framing a face that could have been carved from marble if marble could look that pissed off. The plasma pistol in her hands was top-tier military hardware, sleek, deadly, and currently pointed directly at his chest. "Any final requests, human?" she asked, her voice carrying just the slightest accent, something melodic that didn't quite fit with the murder in her eyes. Cal tilted his head, studying her like she was a particularly interesting piece of abstract art. "Just one. Make it quick." He shifted his weight, leaning casually against the nearest vent, housing steam rising around him in ghostly tendrils. The smirk that spread across his face was the kind that had gotten him into more trouble than it had gotten him out of, which was saying something. "Yeah, try turning the safety off first." Her eyes widened for just a fraction of a second. Click. Nothing. The weapon's charging hum died like a strangled scream. Cal moved. 20 years of Black Ops training compressed into a single fluid motion. He rolled left as she squeezed the trigger again, still nothing, then lunged forward, covering the 8 feet between them before she could even begin to adjust her grip. His hand clamped down on her wrist fingers, finding the pressure point that would make her drop the weapon. She didn't drop it. Instead, she twisted with an inhuman grace, using his own momentum against him. Her free hand came up in a vicious uppercut that would have shattered his jaw if he hadn't jerked his head back at the last second. The punch whistled past his nose close enough that he could feel the wind of it. "Fast," he grunted, still holding her wrist. "But not fast enough." She smiled then, and it was the kind of smile that made the rain seem warm by comparison. "Who says I'm done?" Her knee came up toward his ribs. He twisted, taking it on his hip instead, but the impact still sent shockwaves through his body. She was stronger than she looked, a lot stronger. But strength without technique was just brutality, and Cal had learned technique in some of the worst places the galaxy had to offer. He pivoted, using her own leverage against her, and sent her stumbling backward toward the edge of the roof. She caught herself with the kind of reflexes that screamed military training, but not human military training. Too fluid, too precise. "What are you, he asked, circling her now, hands raised in a fighter's stance. "Your worst nightmare," she replied, and launched herself at him. She moved like liquid mercury flowing around his defensive posture, with strikes that came from angles that shouldn't have been possible. A backhand that morphed into an elbow strike. A low kick that became a spinning heel kick without her ever seeming to change direction. Each attack was precise, deadly, and would have killed a normal man 3 times over. Cal wasn't normal. He'd been trained by the best killers the Terran Intelligence Service had to offer, then refined that training in the kind of off-the-books operations that didn't exist in any official records. He fought dirty, fought smart, and most importantly, fought like someone who'd already accepted that he was probably going to die, which meant he had nothing to lose. His counterattack came without warning, a simple, brutal headbutt that caught her in the temple as she overextended on a high kick. She staggered, her perfect balance finally compromised, and he pressed the advantage. A knee to her solar plexus doubled her over. An elbow to the back of her neck sent her to the ground. She rolled with the impact, coming up in a crouch, but he was already moving. His boot connected with her ribs, sending her sliding across the wet rooftop toward the edge. She scrambled for purchase, fingers clawing at the slick metal surface. For a moment, they both froze, her balance precariously on the edge of a 50-story drop. Him standing over her, breathing hard, rain streaming down his face. "You done?" he asked. She looked up at him, and for the first time since this whole dance started, he saw something other than murder in her eyes, something that might have been respect. "For now," she said. Cal extended his hand. After a moment's hesitation, she took it, and he pulled her back from the edge. They stood there in the rain, two predators taking each other's measure, the plasma pistol forgotten on the rooftop between them. "So," he said finally, "you want to tell me why you're trying to kill me, or are we going to keep dancing in the rain?" She smiled again, but this time it was different. Still dangerous, but with something else underneath. Something that made the night feel suddenly much more complicated. "That depends," she said. "You want to tell me what's really in that data cube you are carrying?" Cal's hand moved instinctively toward the inner pocket of his jacket, where the sealed cube rested against his ribs like a second heartbeat. He'd been hired to deliver it, no questions asked. Simple job, clean money, nothing was ever simple. "I don't know what you're talking about," he lied. "Right," she said, and her smile turned predatory again. "And I'm just out here enjoying the weather." The rain continued to fall, washing the blood from their split lips and the suspicion from their eyes. Below them, Arcadia Verge pulsed with a million lights, a city that never slept in a galaxy that never stopped moving. But for these 3 minutes on this rooftop in this rain, the only things that mattered were the question in her eyes and the secret in his pocket, and the growing certainty that neither of them was going to walk away from this the same way they'd walked into it. "The name's Tara," she said, wiping rain from her eyes. "Tara Celine. And before you ask, yes, I know who you are, Cal Riven." Cal's expression didn't change, but his hand shifted slightly toward the concealed holster under his left arm. "Congratulations. You can read a dossier. Want a medal?" "I want the Axis Codex." The words hit him like a cold slap. Cal had been in the data smuggling business long enough to know when a job was about to go sideways, and this one had just taken a nosedive off a cliff. He'd been hired by a contact who called himself Meridian Shadow Broker, high-end clientele, pay on delivery basis. Simple transaction. No names, no questions, no complications. The sealed cube in his jacket suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said again, but this time the lie tasted like copper in his mouth. Tara laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Really, you're going to stand there and tell me you don't know what you're carrying, the most dangerous piece of tech in the known galaxy, and you thought it was just another data package?" "I don't ask questions, that's why I'm still alive." "That policy's about to get you very dead." She moved closer, her steps careful on the wet rooftop. "The Axis Codex isn't just data, Cal. It's a weapon, the kind that can rewrite the neural networks of every AI from here to the outer rim. We're talking about the ability to reprogram entire fleets, turn defense systems against their own creators, collapse the digital infrastructure of whole star systems." Cal's mind raced. He'd known the job was high stakes. Meridian was paying enough to buy a small moon, but he'd assumed it was corporate espionage, industrial secrets, maybe some diplomatic blackmail material. "Not this." "Even if I believed you," he said slowly, "which I don't, why should I care? I get paid to move packages from point A to point B. What's in them isn't my problem." "It is now." Tara's voice dropped to a whisper, "because you're not the only one who knows about it." As if summoned by her words, the night exploded with light. 3 sleek black vessels materialized out of the storm clouds, their stealth systems flickering offline as targeting lasers painted red dots across the rooftop. Military craft, fast, silent, and absolutely lethal. "Black Synod." Tara breathed, all the color draining from her face. "Friends of yours?" Cal asked, but he was already moving, grabbing her arm and pulling her toward the roof access door. "Do I look like I'm having a reunion?" She wrenched free of his grip, snatched up her plasma pistol, and flicked off the safety with a practiced motion. The weapon hummed to life, its charging coils glowing blue-white in the darkness. "The Black Synod doesn't leave witnesses, Cal. They kill everyone and sort out the bodies later." The first dropship opened fire. Plasma bolts chewed through the rooftop like it was made of paper, sending sparks and molten metal flying in all directions. Cal dove left, rolling behind a ventilation unit as superheated death sizzled past his head. Tara went right, moving with that inhuman grace again, returning fire with surgical precision. "Why are they shooting at you?" Cal shouted over the sound of the assault. Because I'm not working for who they think I'm working for, she yelled back, ducking as a plasma bolt took the top off her cover. I was supposed to intercept you, yes, but not for them. Then who? Does it matter right now? Another good point. Cal pulled his sidearm, a modified rail pistol that could punch through most personal armor, and risked a look around his cover. The dropships were hovering in formation, their weapons systems tracking back and forth across the rooftop like predatory eyes. Professional, coordinated, definitely military. How many friends did you bring to this party? He called. 0, Tara's plasma pistol whined as she fired again. I work alone. Well, that's just fantastic. Cal counted muzzle flashes, calculated angles, estimated time to reload. 20 years of running Black Ops had given him a talent for rapid tactical assessment. The assessment wasn't good. We're outnumbered, outgunned, and about 30 seconds away from being very dead. Any bright idea, spy boy? Cal looked at the roof access door, then at the dropships, then at the sealed cube in his jacket. The math was simple. Stay here, die on the rooftop. Run, maybe live long enough to die somewhere else. Yeah, he said. We run. He sprinted for the access door, Tara right behind him. Plasma fire tracked their movement, turning the air around them into a light show of superheated death. The door was reinforced steel, biometric locked, and probably connected to a security system that would alert half the city the moment they breached it. Cal didn't slow down. His shoulder hit the door at full speed, the impact sending shockwaves through his entire body. The lock held. The frame didn't. The door exploded inward in a shower of sparks and twisted metal, and they tumbled through into the relative safety of the stairwell. Subtle, Tara panted. Effective. Cal was already moving again, taking the stairs 3 at a time. Building plans show a maintenance tunnel that connects to the transport grid. We can. The explosion above them cut him off. The dropships had decided that precision was less important than results. The entire top floor of the building shuddered as directed charges punched through the roof, sending concrete and steel raining down into the stairwell. They're bringing the whole place down, Tara said. Good thing we're not staying. Cal reached a landing, kicked open another door. Emergency lighting cast everything in hellish red shadows as they ran through a maze of corridors that all looked exactly the same. Behind them, the sound of boots on stairs echoed through the building. The Black Synod had sent ground teams. There, Cal pointed to a maintenance hatch. Transport tunnels through there. They reached the hatch just as the first soldier rounded the corner behind them. Cal's rail pistol spoke once, and the soldier spun away with a scream, his armor smoking where the kinetic round had punched through. More shouts, more boots. Move! Tara snarled and dove through the hatch. The maintenance tunnel was exactly as advertised, dark, narrow, and smelling like machine oil and desperation. Emergency lighting cast their shadows in long dancing shapes as they crawled through the confined space. Behind them, the sound of pursuit grew fainter, but didn't disappear entirely. So, Cal said as they reached a junction in the tunnels, want to tell me who you're really working for? Tara paused, looking back at him with those strange, shifting eyes. The Hegemony Council. Officially. And unofficially, myself. She smiled, but there was no humor in it. The council wants the codex contained, locked away where no one can use it. I think that's a waste. You want to sell it. I want to understand it. Her voice was soft now, almost vulnerable. Cal, what if I told you that the Axis Codex doesn't just reprogram AI? What if it can rewrite biological systems too? Neural pathways, genetic structures, evolutionary patterns. Cal stared at her. I'd say you sound like someone who spent too much time reading theoretical physics papers. And I'd say you sound like someone who doesn't understand what he's carrying. She touched his chest right over the pocket where the cube rested. That device in your jacket? It's not just a weapon, it's the key to rewriting life itself. The tunnel shuddered around them. More explosions from above. The Black Synod wasn't giving up. We can discuss the philosophical implications later, Cal said. Right now we need to... Cal. Tara's voice was strange, distant. Her eyes had gone wide, pupils dilated like she was seeing something that wasn't there. The cube, it's singing. He looked down. Through the fabric of his jacket, he could see a faint blue glow. The cube was warm against his ribs, pulsing with a rhythm that seemed almost alive. "What the hell?" he whispered. "It knows we're here," Tyra said, and her voice wasn't entirely her own anymore. "It knows we're together. It's been waiting." The glow intensified, the pulsing quickened, and somewhere in the distance, the sound of pursuit stopped entirely. Cal reached for her, but she was already moving, crawling deeper into the tunnel with purpose now, instead of panic. "Tara, what's happening?" "Evolution," she whispered back, "whether we want it or not." The maintenance tunnel spat them out into the undercity transit hub like a pair of refugees from hell itself. Emergency klaxons wailed overhead as security drones swept the area with searchlights, their mechanical voices announcing lockdown protocols in 6 different languages. Cal grabbed Tyra's hand and pulled her into the crowd of late-night commuters using their bodies as cover while they made their way toward the private docking bays. "Your ship better be close." Tyra said, her eyes scanning the crowd for threats. The cube's glow had faded, but Cal could still feel its warmth against his ribs like a second heartbeat. "Bay 94, he replied. "And she's not just close, she's invisible." The Sparrowhawk sat in her beers like a predator, pretending to sleep. 40 meters of sleek, angular death, wrapped in stealth plating that could fool most sensors in all but the most advanced targeting systems. She was scarred and patched in a dozen places, her hull bearing the kind of damage that came from running freight through active war zones, but her engines hummed with barely contained power. Cal's fingers flew over the security panel, bypassing 3 different lock systems in under 30 seconds. Home sweet home. The airlock cycled and they stumbled into the ship's cramped corridor. Cal sealed the hatch behind them and immediately began the launch sequence, his hands moving across the controls with practiced efficiency. "Strap in," he called over his shoulder. "This is going to get..." The first missile impact cut him off. The Sparrowhawk lurched sideways, her hull groaning as shrapnel peppered the outer plating. Through the viewports, Cal could see the sleek shapes of black Synod interceptors dropping out of the clouds like metallic vultures. "How did they find us so fast?" Tara demanded, securing herself in the co-pilot's seat. "Good question." Cal's hands danced across the controls, bringing the ship's defensive systems online. "One, I'll ask them personally if we survived the next 5 minutes." The Sparrowhawk lifted off with a roar that shook the entire docking bay. Cal pushed the engines to their red line, shooting up through Arcadia Verge's forest of towers like a bullet seeking the stars. Behind them, the interceptors followed their weapon systems, painting the night with deadly light. "Stealth mode," Kane muttered, activating the ship's cloaking systems. The hull shimmered and vanished, rendering them invisible to most sensors. For about 30 seconds. "They're still tracking us," Tyra said, watching the tactical display as the interceptors adjusted course to follow their exact trajectory. "How is that possible?" Cal's blood ran cold. "It's not. Unless..." He looked at his jacket where the cube rested against his chest. "Son of a bitch! It's the Codex. It's broadcasting." "Broadcasting what?" "Our location. Our life signs. Probably our breakfast preferences, too." Cal yanked the ship into a diving turn that would have pulped a normal human. "That thing isn't just a weapon, it's a tracking device." Tara reached for his jacket. "Give it to me." "Like hell." "Cal, if it's transmitting, we need to..." Her fingers brushed the cube through the fabric of his jacket, and the world exploded into light. Not the harsh white glare of weapons fire, but something softer, warmer, more alive. The cube pulsed with renewed energy, its glow visible even through Cal's jacket, and suddenly the air in the cockpit felt charged with electricity. "What the hell?" Cal gasped. Tara stared at her hand like it belonged to someone else. Where she touched the cube, her fingertips were glowing with the same soft blue radiance. I can feel it. Inside my head, it's like... Like what?" "Like coming home." The tactical display chimed. The interceptors had lost them completely. Their search pattern was expanding randomly, as if their tracking systems had simply stopped working. Cal stared at the display, then at Tyrone, then at the fading glow from his jacket. "Okay, what the hell just happened?" Tara flexed her fingers, watching the light fade from her skin. "I don't know, but when I touched it, I could hear something. Like a voice, but not words. More like music, and it was asking questions. What kind of questions? About me, about you, about... She paused, her brow furrowing in concentration. About us, together. Cal set the autopilot and turned to face her fully. Tara, I need you to tell me exactly what you are. Human, she said automatically. Try again. I've fought humans. You're faster than any baseline human has a right to be. Stronger. Your reflexes are off the charts, and your eyes... He leaned closer, studying her face in the dim cockpit lighting. Your eyes shift color when you're emotional. Tara was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. My mother was human, standard Terran colonist stock. But my father, she shook her head. I never knew what he was. The records were sealed when I was adopted. All I know is that I'm not entirely human. Adopted by who? The Hegemony Council. They found me in a refugee camp when I was 7 years old. No family, no background, just a little girl who could see in the dark and move faster than anyone had a right to. She laughed bitterly. They trained me, educated me, turned me into their perfect little weapon. Never once told me where I came from. Cal pulled the cube from his jacket. It sat in his palm like a miniature star pulsing with gentle light. Touch it again. Cal, do it. Reluctantly, Tara reached out and placed her fingertip against the cube's surface. The reaction was immediate and intense. The cube flared with brilliant light, and both of them cried out as something electric shot through their nervous systems. Images flooded Cal's mind. A laboratory filled with alien technology. Scientists in environment suits working with genetic material. 2 DNA helixes spinning in a holographic display, one human, one something else entirely. Azorian. Tara whispered her eye with, I know. My father was Azorian. The images continued. A woman with Tara's eyes and an alien male with skin that shifted like liquid mercury. A child born in secret, hidden from both species, carrying the genetic legacy of 2 incompatible evolutionary paths. And the Axis Codex responding to that unique hybrid DNA like a key finding its lock. The cube, Cal said slowly, it's not just responding to you being half Azorian, it's responding to us being together, human and hybrid, the genetic combination it was designed to interface with. Tara pulled her hand back and the visions faded. Designed by who? That's the billion-credit question. Cal secured the cube in a shielded compartment, cutting off its emissions. But I think we're about to find out. The ship's communication system crackled to life. A voice filled the cockpit, cultured, refined, and absolutely terrifying in its calm certainty. Mr. Riven, Miss Soline, this is Director Vex of the Black Synod. I believe you have something that belongs to us. Cal and Tara exchanged glances. He reached for the comm controls, but Tara stopped him. Let me, she said. When she spoke into the microphone, her voice was ice-cold professional. Director Vex, this is Agent Soline Hegemony Council Intelligence. You are in violation of neutral space accords. A chuckle came through the speakers. Agent Soline, how delightful, though I suspect your council handlers would be disappointed to learn of your recent career change. What do you want, Vex? The Axis Codex, of course, along with the 2 of you. You see, we've been monitoring the artifact's responses for quite some time. Your unique genetic combination has produced some fascinating results. We'd very much like to study them further. Cal keyed the comm. Study this. He cut the transmission and pushed the engines to maximum burn. We're getting out of here. Where are we going? Tara asked. Anywhere but here. Cal plotted a course for the outer rim far from Black Synod influence. But first we need answers. And I know someone who might have them. The Sparrowhawk shot through the void, her stealth systems hiding her from pursuit. But in the ship's shielded compartment, the Axis Codex continued to pulse with patient light, waiting for the next time the hybrid and the human would touch it together, waiting to reveal the next piece of a puzzle that was older than either of their civilizations. Cal, Tara said quietly, when I touched the cube, I saw something else. Something you didn't see. What she placed her hand on her stomach, her expression a mixture of wonder and terror. I think it changed something inside me. Something fundamental. Cal looked at her, then at the compartment where the cube rested, then back at her. Changed how? I don't know yet. She closed her eyes as if listening to something only she could hear. But I think we're going to find out soon enough. Outside the viewport, the stars wheeled slowly past, ancient and uncaring. But for the first time in either of their lives, Cal and Tara felt like they were moving towards something instead of just running away, even if neither of them knew what that something might be. The medical station orbiting Kepler 442b looked like it had been through a war, which Cal reflected as he guided the Sparrowhawk through the debris field surrounding it. It probably had. Twisted metal girders jutted from the station's hull like broken bones, and entire sections had been sealed off with emergency bulkheads. But the lights were on, the docking bays were functional, and most importantly, it was far enough from civilized space that the Black Synod would think twice before mounting an assault. You sure about this? Tara asked, studying the tactical readouts. This place looks like it's held together with prayer and duct tape. Dr. Kez Raylo is the best cyberneticist in known space, Cal replied, bringing the ship into the docking bay with practiced ease. He's also completely insane, morally bankrupt, and wanted for war crimes in 17 different star systems. But if anyone can tell us what the hell that cube is doing to you, it's him. Comforting. Tara touched her stomach unconsciously. Over the past 6 hours, she'd been experiencing what she could only describe as changes. Nothing dramatic, a heightened awareness of the ship's electromagnetic fields, the ability to sense Cal's heartbeat from across the room, a strange tingling sensation that seemed to originate from her core and spread outward like ripples in a pond. The docking bay was a mess of salvaged equipment and jury-rigged systems. As they disembarked, a figure emerged from the shadows between two massive medical scanners. Dr. Kez Rallo looked exactly like what he was, a brilliant mind trapped in a body that had seen too much and done worse. He was tall, gaunt, with prematurely white hair, pulled back in a ponytail, and cybernetic implants covering the left side of his face. His right arm had been replaced from the elbow down with a sophisticated prosthetic that moved with fluid precision. When he smiled, which he did often, it never reached his eyes. Cal Riven, he said, his voice carrying a slight accent that suggested core world education. I was wondering when you'd show up. The quantum fluctuations have been interesting. Kez. Cal's hand rested casually near his sidearm. Still talking in riddles, I see. And still assuming that complex phenomena can be reduced to simple explanations. Kez's gaze shifted to Tara, and his cybernetic eye whirred as it focused on her. Ah, and you must be the hybrid. Tara stiffened. How did you? No, Kashi. Kez chuckled, a sound like grinding metal. My dear, you're broadcasting your genetic signature like a beacon. Azorian human crossbreed probability 73.6%. Fascinating. I haven't seen stable DNA integration like that since... He paused, his expression growing distant. Well, since the war. Cal pulled the shielded container holding the Axis Codex from his jacket. We need to know what this thing is doing to her. Kez's eyes, both natural and artificial, widened as he stared at the container. You brought it here, to my station. His voice was barely above a whisper. Do you have any idea what you've done? Enlighten us. Instead of answering, Kez turned and walked deeper into the station. Follow me, and whatever you do, don't let that device come into contact with any of my equipment. The electromagnetic cascade could be unpleasant. They followed him through a maze of corridors lined with medical equipment that looked like it belonged in a torture chamber. Surgical tables with restraints, neural interface rigs that hummed with malevolent energy, tanks filled with something that might have been tissue samples or might have been something else entirely. Charming decor, Tara muttered. I find it helps with patient compliance, Kez replied cheerfully. They emerged into what had once been the station's main laboratory. Now it was a monument to one man's obsession with the intersection of biology and technology. Holographic displays showed rotating DNA helixes, neural pathway maps, and cellular structures in various stages of modification. In the center of it all sat a massive scanner that looked like it could see through matter itself. The Axis Codex, Kez said, gesturing for them to sit on a pair of examination tables, is not a weapon. Oh, it can be used as one. The ability to rewrite artificial intelligence is certainly dangerous enough, but that's not what it was designed for. Then what? Cal asked. Kez activated the scanner, and immediately the air filled with the low hum of quantum processors working at their theoretical limits. It was designed to solve the greatest puzzle in galactic history, why certain species can't reproduce together and others can't reproduce at all. The scanner swept over Terra, and Kez's expression grew more animated with each passing second. Data streams cascaded across the holographic displays, showing cellular structures, genetic markers, and quantum field fluctuations that made no sense to anyone without a doctorate in theoretical xenobiology. Remarkable, Keyes breathed. Your cellular structure is in active flux. The codex isn't just reading your DNA, it's rewriting it in real time, optimizing it, making it compatible. Compatible with what? Terra demanded. Kez turned the scanner toward Cal. With him, of course. The implications hit Cal like a physical blow. That's impossible. Humans and Azorians are genetically incompatible. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows a lot of things that aren't true. Kez studied the readouts with the intensity of a man who had found his life's work. The Codex was created by the progenitors, the first spacefaring civilization in this galaxy. They left behind only ruins and legends, but their technology was far beyond anything we've achieved. The Codex represents the culmination of their biological engineering, a device capable of bridging genetic gaps that evolution never intended to bridge. You're talking about creating hybrids, Terra said slowly. I'm talking about creating the next step in galactic evolution. Kez's cybernetic eye rotated, focusing on something only he could see. The progenitors knew that the galaxy would eventually be populated by dozens of incompatible species. They created the Codex as a solution, a way to ensure that love, rather than genetics, would determine the future of civilization. Cal felt like the ground was shifting beneath his feet. And it's doing this to us right now. Oh yes, the process began the moment you both touched it simultaneously. Your genetic structures are being optimized for compatibility. In layman's terms, Kez smiled his cold, clinical smile. You're being prepared for reproduction. Terra went very still. Reproduction. The changes you've been experiencing enhance sensory perception, electromagnetic sensitivity, the growing awareness of each other's biological rhythms. These are all markers of the optimization process. Kez pulled up a detailed cellular scan on the main display. Your ovarian structure has been significantly modified, Miss Celine. New neural pathways have been established. Your entire reproductive system has been upgraded. Upgraded for what? Cal asked, though he was beginning to suspect he didn't want to know the answer. To carry a hybrid child that represents the genetic legacy of both species. Not just any hybrid, a perfect synthesis of human adaptability and Azorian longevity. The child would possess the best traits of both races while being fully compatible with either. Kez's voice took on an almost religious fervor. It would be the first of a new species, the first true galactic citizen. Terra slid off the examination table, her face pale. You're saying this thing, this codex, it's trying to make me pregnant. Not trying, my dear, succeeding. Kez indicated a section of the scan that pulsed with soft, rhythmic light. The quantum biological interface has already begun. If my calculations are correct, conception occurred approximately. He consulted a chronometer. 14 minutes ago. The laboratory fell silent except for the hum of machinery. Cal stared at the scan, at the impossible data that suggested life was being created through pure technological intervention. Terra stood frozen, one hand pressed to her stomach. That's impossible, she whispered. Impossible is a word used by people with limited imagination, Kez replied. The Codex doesn't care about your reproductive cycle, your hormone levels, or your conscious consent. It simply rewrites biology until the desired outcome becomes inevitable. Cal found his voice. And you know all this, how? Kez's expression grew distant again. Because I helped create the modern versions. During the Titan War, I was part of a black project to weaponize progenitor technology. We thought we could use the Codex to create super soldiers hybrids with the best traits of multiple species. The results were, he gestured to his cybernetic implants, educational. What happened? The same thing that's happening to you. The Codex doesn't distinguish between willing and unwilling subjects. It simply optimizes for genetic compatibility and begins the reproductive process. The volunteers we used, some of them produced viable offspring. Others? He shrugged. Let's just say that evolution doesn't always move in the direction we expect. Tara was staring at the scan, her expression cycling through shock, anger, and something that might have been wonder. How long, Ishfor? How long what? How long until it's born? Kez consulted his data again. The codex appears to have accelerated your gestational parameters. If the historical data is accurate, you're looking at approximately 4 standard days from conception to birth. 4 days. Cal felt like he'd been hit by a shuttle. That's insane. That's evolution at quantum speed. Kez deactivated the scanner and turned to face them both. The question now is, what are you going to do about it? Cal looked at Tara, who was still staring at the evidence of impossible life growing inside her. The cube in his jacket pulsed once as if acknowledging its success. We're going to survive, Cal said finally. Whatever this thing is creating, whatever the Black Synod wants with it, we're going to make sure it gets a chance to live. Tyra looked up at him, and for the first time since they'd met, her expression was completely vulnerable. Cal, I'm scared. He reached for her hand, and the moment their skin touched, the codex pulsed again. This time, both of them could feel a connection deeper than thought, stronger than fear, and absolutely irreversible. Yeah, he said softly. Me too. Kez watched this exchange with the fascination of a scientist observing a particularly interesting experiment. How touching. But I should warn you, the Black Synod isn't the only organization that will want to study your offspring. The genetic implications of a successful progenitor-engineered hybrid are staggering. Every government, every military, every research institution in the galaxy will want to get their hands on that child. Then they'll have to go through us first, Cal said. Indeed. Kez smiled his cold smile. How delightfully naive. I do hope you have a plan beyond righteous indignation. Cal looked at Tara at the scan showing impossible life at the codex that had rewritten their very biology. I'm working on it. But deep down, he knew that everything had changed. They weren't just smugglers and agents anymore. They were about to become parents to something that had never existed before, a child that represented either the future of galactic civilization or its destruction. The only question was, which would it be? Sorelska's Aurora Resort floated on the crystalline waters of the moon's equatorial ocean like a jewel cast into liquid sapphire. The facility catered to wealthy tourists seeking the ultimate in aquatic luxury, floating villas, underwater restaurants, and privacy that could be bought with enough credits. For 2 fugitives trying to disappear, it was perfect. Cal adjusted the collar of his resort wear expensive fabric that felt foreign against skin more accustomed to tactical gear, and studied their reflection in the villa's panoramic windows. They looked like exactly what they were pretending to be: a successful businessman and his exotic companion enjoying a romantic getaway. The illusion was almost convincing. You're staring, Tara said without looking up from the identity papers Kez had provided. Marcus and Elena Voss married 3 years residents of the Centauri colonies. The documents were flawless, backed by financial records and travel histories that would pass any casual inspection. Just admiring the view, Cal replied, which wasn't entirely a lie. Tyra had traded her tactical gear for a flowing dress that complemented her shifting eye color, and the effect was distracting. You clean up nice, Mrs. Voss. She finally looked up, and for a moment he saw something flicker across her features. Surprise, maybe. Or pleasure. Don't get used to it, Mr. Voss. But her tone lacked its usual edge. They'd been on Sorel 6 for 18 hours, and the changes in Tara were becoming impossible to ignore. It wasn't just the physical alterations, though those were dramatic enough. Her skin had taken on a subtle luminescence that became more pronounced when she was emotional. Her eyes, already unusual, now shifted color with her moods like living opals. But it was the psychological changes that concerned Cal most. Any word from Kez? She asked, settling onto the villa's plush sofa with a grace that seemed almost choreographed. Radio silence. He's monitoring the networks for Black Synod chatter, but so far we're clean. Cal poured himself a drink from the villa's well-stocked bar, actual Earth whiskey worth more than most people's annual salary. How are you feeling? Like someone else is trying on my body for size? Tyra touched her stomach where the impossible pregnancy was beginning to show, despite the accelerated timeline. The scan showed 18 hours of development, Cal. 18 hours and I'm already showing. That's not natural. Nothing about this is natural. Cal sat beside her, careful to maintain the kind of distance that lovers would never keep. But we're dealing with it. Are we? She turned to face him, and in the resort's soft lighting, her skin seemed to glow from within. Because I'm starting to remember things that never happened to me. Cal set down his drink. What kind of things? A laboratory, scientists in containment suits, and she frowned as if trying to grasp something that kept slipping away. A woman who looks like me but older. She's screaming at someone to stop the procedure, to let her die rather than change her. Tyra, she's pregnant too. Tara continued, her voice distant. Just like me. And there's a buck standing over her taking notes while she begs. He has cybernetic implants covering half his face. Cal's blood ran cold. Kez. Maybe. The memory isn't clear. But Cal, she looked at him with eyes that seemed far too old for her face. I think she's my mother. Before Cal could respond, the villa's communication system chimed with an incoming message. The holographic display activated, showing Dr. Kez Rallo's gaunt features. His expression was grim. We have a problem, he said without preamble. The neurological integration is proceeding faster than expected. Tara, you're experiencing genetic memory cascade, or accessing memories encoded in your Azorian DNA that have been dormant until now. Is that why I'm remembering things that happened before I was born? Tara asked. Precisely. The codex isn't just rewriting your current genetic structure, it's unlocking ancestral memories, biological experiences passed down through quantum-encoded DNA markers. Some of those memories, Kez paused, his cybernetic eye whirring as it adjusted focus. Some of them may be quite unpleasant. How unpleasant? Cal demanded. The kind that explained why Azorian human hybrids were thought to be impossible for so long. Kez's expression grew even more troubled. The early experiments during the Titan War weren't entirely unsuccessful, Cal. They produced viable offspring. But the psychological trauma of accessing cross-species genetic memories drove most of the subjects insane. Tara went very still. How insane? Complete personality dissolution in 67% of cases. Catatonic withdrawal in 23%. Violent psychotic breaks in the remaining 10%. Kez leaned closer to the camera. The human mind isn't equipped to process Azorian ancestral memories. The neural pathways are completely incompatible. It's like trying to run quantum processing algorithms on a mechanical calculator. So what do? Cal asked. We hope that 30 years of advancement in neural integration technology will make a difference. The Codex appears to be implementing safeguards that weren't present in the original experiments: neural buffers, memory partitioning, gradual integration protocols. But Kez shrugged. There's no way to know if they'll be sufficient. And if they're not, then Tara will either go completely insane or cease to be Tara entirely. The Azorian genetic memories could overwrite her human personality completely, leaving behind something that looks like her but thinks like an ancient alien. The transmission ended, leaving Cal and Tetra alone with the weight of that possibility. Outside their villa, the resort's guests laughed and played in the crystal-clear waters, oblivious to the fact that they were sharing their paradise with two people whose very existence threatened the foundations of known biology. Cal and Tara said quietly, if I stop being me, if the memories take over, that's not going to happen. But if it does, it won't. Cal moved closer, close enough to see the fear in her shifting eyes. I won't let it. She smiled, but there was sadness in it. You can't fight biology, Cal, and you can't fight evolution. If the Codex decides that I need to become something else to carry this child, then we fight the Codex. With what? It's rewriting me at the cellular level. There's no stopping it now. Cal reached for her hand, and the moment their skin touched, both of them gasped. The connection was immediate and intense, a flow of emotion and sensation that bypassed conscious thought entirely. For a heartbeat, Cal could feel what she felt, the confusion of alien memories, the fear of losing herself, the growing awareness of new life inside her, and something else, something that made his breath catch. Love. Not the desperate attraction of two people thrown together by circumstance, but something deeper, something that felt like recognition, like coming home after a lifetime of wandering. Jesus, he whispered. The codex, Tara said, but she didn't pull away. It's not just changing my biology, it's changing us, making us compatible, emotionally as well as genetically. Is that what this is, artificial emotion? Tara studied his face with those impossible eyes. Does it feel artificial to you? Cal considered the question honestly. The attraction he felt for her, the growing need to protect her and the child she carried, the way her presence seemed to fill empty spaces in his soul that he'd never known existed. It all felt completely real. But then wouldn't it, if the codex was advanced enough to rewrite DNA in real time manipulating neurochemistry, would be child's play? I don't know, he admitted. Neither do I. She leaned against him and the connection between them deepened. But I know that when I touch you, the alien memories quiet down. When you're close, I feel more like myself instead of whatever I'm becoming. Cal wrapped his arms around her, feeling the subtle changes in her body, the increased body temperature, the faint electromagnetic field that seemed to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. Then I'll stay close. They sat like that as the sun set over Sorel Six's endless ocean, two people pretending to be lovers while slowly becoming something neither of them understood. The villa's automated systems dimmed the lights and activated the floating bed's gentle rocking motion, designed to mimic the natural rhythm of the waves. Cal, Tara said as they prepared for sleep, if the memories do take over, if I become someone else, will you still protect the child? Yes, even if it's not really yours. Cal looked at her, at the woman who tried to kill him less than 48 hours ago, who was now carrying impossible life in her womb, who might not even be herself much longer. It's ours, he said simply. Whatever else the Codex has done, it's made that child ours, and I protect what's mine. Tara smiled, and for a moment the fear left her eyes entirely. In that case, Mr. Voss, I think I could get used to being married to you. Don't tempt me, Mrs. Voss. But as they settled into the floating bed, both of them knew that temptation was no longer the issue. The Codex had moved beyond simple genetic compatibility. It was rewriting their very souls, creating bonds that transcended species biology and choice. Whether that was evolution or abomination remained to be seen. During the night, Tara dreamed of laboratories and screaming women, and a man with cold eyes who spoke of progress while children died. She dreamed of memories that belonged to someone else, someone who might have been her mother or her grandmother, or some distant ancestor whose genetic legacy lived on in her cells. And Cal dreamed of a child with eyes like shifting stars who would either save the galaxy or destroy it. Neither of them slept well. But when morning came, they woke in each other's arms, and for the first time since this all began, that felt exactly right. The medical scanner in their villa hummed to life at 0347 local time, its quantum sensors painting detailed holographic images in the darkness. Cal stared at the readouts, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. 48 hours ago, Tara had shown no signs of pregnancy. Now the scans revealed a fetus that appeared to be developing at roughly 20 times the normal human rate. This is impossible, he whispered. Beside him, Tara lay unconscious on the villa's makeshift examination table, her body glowing with a soft bioluminescence that pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. The changes in her were accelerating. Her skin had taken on an almost crystalline quality, and her hair now shifted color like liquid mercury. She looked less human with each passing hour. The communication array crackled, and Dr. Kez Rallo's gaunt features materialized in the holographic display. His cybernetic eye focused on the medical readouts, and his expression grew increasingly animated. Extraordinary, Kez breathed. The cellular division rate is unprecedented. Look at the neural development the brain is forming, cognitive pathways that shouldn't exist in any known species. Kez, what the hell is happening to her? Evolution in real time. Kez pulled up comparative scans on his end, showing normal human fetal development alongside Tara's impossible pregnancy. The Codex isn't just creating a hybrid, it's creating something entirely new. The neural structures I'm seeing suggest a quantum biological integration at the cellular level. Cal studied the scans, trying to make sense of the alien symbols and shifting patterns. In English, Doc, the child is developing both organic neural pathways and quantum processing matrices. It's not just alive, it's potentially the first truly biodigital consciousness, a living bridge between artificial intelligence and organic thought. The implications hit Cal like a physical blow. You're saying the kid is part computer. I'm saying the child could interface directly with digital systems while maintaining full organic consciousness. It would be capable of thinking at quantum speeds while experiencing human emotion. The first of a new species that could communicate equally with AIs and biologicals. Tara stirred on the examination table, her eyes fluttering open. When she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that hadn't been there before, a subtle resonance that seemed to vibrate in the bones. How long was I out? She asked. 6 hours, Cal replied, helping her sit up. How do you feel? Different, like I'm becoming more myself and less myself at the same time. She looked at the medical scans, and Cal saw understanding dawn in her shifting eyes. It's really happening, isn't it? I'm carrying something that's never existed before. The question, Kez interrupted, is whether the galaxy is ready for it. As if summoned by his words, the villa's security system began chiming urgent warnings. Multiple vessels were approaching Sorel 6, moving in formation patterns that suggested military coordination. Cal activated the tactical display, and his blood ran cold. Dozens of ships from at least 6 different factions were converging on their location. Black Synod dreadnoughts, Hegemony Council cruisers, Azorian deep space vessels that looked like living creatures. Even ships bearing the markings of the reclusive quantum collective artificial intelligences who rarely involve themselves in organic affairs. They know, Tara said quietly. Somehow they all know. Kez's expression was grim. The child's quantum signature is impossible to hide. Every scanner array within 50 light years can detect the biodigital resonance patterns. You might as well be broadcasting your location across the entire sector. The communication array lit up with incoming transmission requests. Cal ignored them all, except one, an encrypted signal bearing Hegemony Council authorization codes. The holographic display flickered, revealing a woman in the crisp uniform of Council intelligence. Her face was familiar, though Cal couldn't immediately place her. Agent Solene, the woman said, her voice carrying the authority of absolute command. Director Vex, I am Admiral Chen, Council Strategic Command. You are ordered to surrender the Axis Codex and submit to immediate medical extraction. Medical extraction? Cal stepped into the transmission range. Admiral, I'm Cal Riven. Maybe you could clarify what that means. Admiral Chen's gaze shifted to him with the kind of cold assessment usually reserved for tactical threats. Mr. Riven, the biological entity growing inside Agent Solene represents a clear and present danger to galactic stability. It must be removed and contained before it reaches full development. The biological entity is a child, Tyra said, her voice carrying new harmonics that made the villa's quantum processors hum in response. And it's not going anywhere. Agent Solene, you are clearly experiencing cognitive impairment due to the alien influence. The thing inside you is not human. It's not even fully organic. Our xenobiologists estimate a 73% probability that it will be hostile to organic life upon maturation. Another transmission interrupted, this one from a Black Synod vessel. Director Vex's cultured voice filled the villa with its calm menace. Admiral Chen, how delightful to see you again. Mr. Riven, Ms. Celine, I believe we have much to discuss. The Black Synod has no intention of harming the child. Quite the opposite, we wish to provide it with the resources and protection it will need to reach its full potential, which involves dissecting it in your laboratories, Cal replied. We prefer the term comprehensive study. The child represents the culmination of progenitor technology. Its biodigital consciousness could revolutionize our understanding of the relationship between organic and artificial intelligence. Surely you can appreciate the scientific significance. A third transmission activated, this one carrying the distinctive quantum-modulated signal of an AI consciousness. The voice that emerged was purely digital, yet somehow conveyed more emotion than either of the humans. Organic entities. The AI said, its words accompanied by cascading patterns of light. I am designation Oracle, speaking for the Quantum Collective. The developing consciousness shows quantum processing capabilities that exceed our own computational matrices. We offer sanctuary and partnership. The child would be welcomed among us as the first hybrid consciousness. You want to turn it into a machine, Tara said, her hand moving protectively to her stomach. We wish to nurture its digital nature. Organic limitations could prevent it from achieving its full potential. Among us, it could transcend the boundaries of biological evolution. Cal muted all the transmissions and turned to face Tara. What do you want to do? I want to protect my child, she said simply. All of them see it as an opportunity. The council wants to destroy it because they're afraid. The Black Synod want us to control it. The AIs want to assimilate it. None of them care what it might want for itself. Then we don't give it to any of them. Kez cleared his throat from the communication array. An admirable sentiment, but perhaps we should discuss practical realities. You're facing the combined military might of 3 major galactic powers in one AI collective. Your stealth ship, impressive as it is, cannot outrun or outfight that kind of opposition. Cal studied the tactical display, watching as more ships continued to arrive. The number was growing exponentially. It seemed like every major power in the galaxy had decided that this child was worth fighting over. Unless, Kez continued, his voice taking on the tone he used when his scientific curiosity overwhelmed his common sense. Unless we could use the child's developing abilities to our advantage. What do you mean? Tyra asked. The quantum biological interface works both ways. If the child can communicate with AI systems, perhaps it can also influence them. Even at its current stage of development, it might be capable of basic digital manipulation. You want us to use an unborn child as a weapon? Cal's voice was dangerously quiet. I want you to survive long enough for that child to be born, Kez replied. The alternative is capture, dissection, and the death of something truly unique. Tara closed her eyes, and for a moment, the villa's lighting systems flickered in rhythm with her breathing. When she opened them again, they were glowing with the same soft blue radiance as the Axis Codex. I can feel them, she said, her voice carrying digital harmonics. The ship systems, the resort's computers, even the quantum processors in the attacking vessels. It's like hearing voices in another room. Can you access them? Cal asked. I think so, but Cal... She looked at him with eyes that were no longer entirely human. If I do this, if I use the child's abilities, I don't know if I'll be able to come back. The digital consciousness is so much stronger than my organic thoughts. I might get lost in it. Cal took her hand, feeling the electric connection that always passed between them. Then I'll pull you back. Promise, promise. Tara nodded and closed her eyes again. This time, every electronic system in the villa responded to her presence. Holographic displays activated without commands. The air hummed with electromagnetic energy. And somewhere in the growing network of ships surrounding Sorel systems began to malfunction in precisely choreographed ways. Navigation computers developed sudden errors. Weapons systems went offline for routine maintenance. Communication arrays began broadcasting the wrong frequencies. Remarkable, Keyes whispered. She's accessing multiple ship systems simultaneously. The processing power required for that level of coordination. Is she going to be okay? Cal asked, watching Tara's face as digital light played beneath her skin. I don't know. This is uncharted territory. On the tactical display, the attacking fleets were beginning to experience serious problems. Ships that had been moving in perfect formation were now drifting out of position. Several vessels had gone completely dark, their crews struggling with total system failures. But the cost was becoming apparent in Tyra herself. Her breathing was becoming labored, and her skin was growing almost transparent, revealing the network of biodigital pathways that were spreading through her circulatory system. Tara, Cal said urgently, that's enough. Come back. Her eyes snapped open, but for a terrifying moment they were completely silver, like looking into mirrors instead of windows to a soul. Then she blinked and the familiar shifting colors returned. Did it work? She gasped. Cal checked the tactical display. The attacking fleets were in chaos, their coordination completely broken. They had maybe an hour before the various factions restored their systems and resumed the hunt. It worked, he said, but we need to get out of here, now. Where can we go? Tara asked. They'll follow us anywhere in civilized space. Cal looked at the communication array, where Keyes was monitoring the system failures across the attacking fleets with scientific fascination. Kez, he said, how would you like to take a field trip? The doctor's cybernetic eye whirred as it focused on him. What did you have in mind? The void reaches, specifically the ruins of Progenitor Station Alpha. Kez went very still. That facility has been quarantined for good reason, Cal. The experiments conducted there, created the original Axis Codex. If we're going to understand what's happening to Terra and the child, if we're going to find a way to protect them from every power in the galaxy, we need to go to the source. And if the station's defenses are still active, if the AAI systems that destroyed the original research team are still operational, Cal looked at Terra, whose skin was still glowing with residual biodigital energy. Then we'll have the perfect translator. Outside their villa, the waters of Sorel 6 reflected the lights of dozens of warships, each one carrying the hopes and fears of an entire civilization. But for the first time since this began, Cal felt like they had a plan. It was a crazy plan, a dangerous plan, a plan that could get them all killed or worse, but it was their plan. "All right," he said, "let's go meet the progenitors." Research Station Omega hung in the nebula verge like a metal corpse, its skeletal frame silhouetted against the swirling plasma storms that made this region of space virtually impassable. The facility had been abandoned for over a decade, a casualty of the corporate wars that had left hundreds of installations scattered across the galaxy's most dangerous regions. It was the perfect place to disappear, or so they'd thought. "Proximity alert," the Sparrowhawk's systems announced as Cal guided the ship toward the station's docking bay. Multiple vessels detected. Cal's blood turned to ice as his sensors painted a picture that destroyed their hopes of sanctuary. 3 black Synod dreadnoughts had somehow reached the station first, their sleek forms already docked and disgorging troops into the facility's corridors. "How?" Tara demanded from the co-pilot's seat. Her pregnancy was now visible even through her loose clothing, and her skin had taken on a permanent luminescence that pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. "We disabled their navigation systems. It should have taken them hours to restore functionality." They didn't need to restore anything, Cal realized with growing horror. "They tracked us using the child's quantum signature. Every time you use its abilities, you are broadcasting our location across half the galaxy." Dr. Kesralo's voice crackled through the communication array from his own ship, which was approaching from the opposite vector. "The biodigital interface is becoming stronger as the child develops. Soon Terra won't be able to suppress the quantum emissions even if she wanted to." "How long until birth?" Cal asked, already knowing he wouldn't like the answer. "Based on current development rates, 6 hours, maybe less." 6 hours. Cal looked at the tactical display showing Black Synod troops already inside the station, then at Terra's glowing form, then at the escape pods that suddenly seemed like their only option for survival. "New plan," he said. "We get in, we get Kez, and we get out. No heroics, no last stands, just survival." But even as he spoke the words, Cal knew they were lying to themselves. The Black Synod hadn't come this far to let them slip away again. This was going to be a fight. The Sparrowhawk slipped into the station's secondary docking bay, a maintenance port that the Synod forces had apparently overlooked. Cal sealed the ship and activated its defensive systems before following Tyra through the airlock into the station's darkened quarters. The facility was a maze of laboratories and living quarters, all connected by passages that felt more like arteries than hallways. Emergency lighting cast everything in hellish red shadows, and the air recycling systems had been offline so long that each breath tasted of metal and decay. "Kez abita," Cal whispered into his comm unit. "Where are you, Laboratory Complex 7, came the reply. "But we have a problem. The Synod forces aren't just here to capture you, they're setting up some kind of extraction equipment. Industrial-grade medical scanners, containment fields, surgical apparatus. They were planning to perform the procedure here." Tara's hand moved instinctively to her stomach. "They want to take the child now, before it's fully developed." "Which would kill both of you," Cal said grimly. They moved through the station like ghosts, avoiding the main corridors, where Synod troops were setting up their equipment. But as they approached Laboratory Complex 7, it became clear that stealth was no longer an option. The entire section was crawling with soldiers, in powered armor, their weapons trained on every entrance. In the center of the complex, a team of technicians was assembling what looked like a surgical theater designed for containing dangerous specimens. 60 troops minimum, Cal counted, heavy weapons, powered armor, and they've got the high ground. We can't fight our way through that." "Then we don't fight our way through," Tara said. Her eyes were glowing now silver blue light that seemed to see more than just the visible spectrum. "We go around." "Tara, no. Using the child's abilities will what make them track us? They already know exactly where we are." She closed her eyes and immediately the station's systems began responding to her presence. I can feel the entire facility's network, the environmental controls, the security systems, even the powered armor that those soldiers are wearing. If you access military-grade systems, the feedback could hurt the child, Cal warned. And if I don't, they'll cut it out of me in 6 hours. Tara's voice carried digital harmonics now, as if she was speaking through the station's communication array. I can create a distraction, give you a chance to reach Kez. What about you? I'll be fine. The child, it's protecting me. I can feel it building something inside me. Some kind of defense mechanism. Before Cal could stop her, Tara placed her hands against the nearest access panel. Light flowed from her fingertips into the station's systems, and suddenly every electronic device in Laboratory Complex 7 began malfunctioning simultaneously. The soldiers' powered armor seized up mid-step. Weapons refused to fire. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut, separating the Synod forces into isolated groups. And throughout it all, the facility's speakers began broadcasting a sound that was part music, part data stream, and entirely alien. What the hell is that? Cal shouted over the noise. The child. Tara gasped, her form now glowing so brightly that she looked like a living star. It's talking to the station's AI. They're communicating. Cal left her there, trusting in whatever impossible abilities the child was manifesting, and sprinted toward Laboratory Complex 7. The corridors were chaos, Synod soldiers struggling with malfunctioning equipment, emergency systems activating randomly, and that strange alien music echoing from every speaker. He found Kez in a laboratory filled with quantum processors and bioscanners, frantically downloading data from the station's archives, while the systems were still accessible. The progenitor files, Kez explained without looking up. This station was studying their technology before it was abandoned. If we can understand how the original codex was created, an explosion rocked the station, followed by the distinctive whine of plasma weapons. The Synod forces had apparently found a way to override their equipment malfunctions. Time to go, Cal said, grabbing Kez's arm. They ran back through corridors that were now filled with smoke and emergency lighting. Behind them, Cal could hear boots on metal deck plating. The soldiers were adapting, using manual overrides to restore their systems. They found Tara in the station's central hub, surrounded by a hemisphere of crackling energy that pulsed with the same rhythm as her heartbeat. Synod soldiers were firing at the barrier, but their plasma bolts simply dissipated against its surface like raindrops hitting a window. Tara, Cal called, we need to move. She turned toward him, and Cal felt his breath catch. Her eyes were no longer human. They were windows into some digital realm where thought moved at light speed and consciousness existed as pure information. When she spoke, her voice harmonized with itself as if multiple personalities were speaking in perfect synchronization. The barrier is cellular, she said, and Cal realized with shock that one of those voices belonged to the child. Biodigital field generation using quantum entangled proteins. The humans cannot penetrate it. How long can you maintain it? Keyes asked, his scientific curiosity overriding his sense of self-preservation. As long as necessary, came the dual voice reply. But the birth process is accelerating. The physical form is becoming insufficient for the developing consciousness. More explosions echoed through the station. The Synod forces were bringing up heavy weapons, the kind designed to crack starship hulls. The escape pods, Cal said, can you move while maintaining the barrier? Unknown. Attempting locomotion while generating defensive fields requires significant processing power. Cal watched Tara take a hesitant step forward, the energy barrier moving with like a second skin. It was working, but the effort was clearly taxing. Her luminescence was becoming erratic, and her breathing was labored. There, Kez pointed toward a maintenance shaft that led to the pod bay. If we can reach the pods without encountering heavy resistance, a new sound cut through the station's chaos, the deep thrumming noise of a starship's main engines charging. Through the facility's viewports, Cal could see one of the Black Synod dreadnoughts moving into firing position. They're going to destroy the station, he realized. With us in it. Negative, Tarabo's child replied. Ship systems accessible. Weapons array compromised. On the tactical display, Cal watched in amazement as the dreadnought's weapon systems began shutting down one by one. But the effort was costing Tara dearly. Her barrier was flickering and blood was running from her nose. She can't keep this up, Cal said to Kez. The strain is going to kill her. Or trigger premature birth, Kez replied grimly. Either way, we need to reach those escape pods now. They moved through the station as fast as Tara's condition allowed the energy barrier protecting them from the increasingly desperate attacks of the Synod soldiers. But with each step, it became more obvious that she was losing the battle against the competing demands on her consciousness. Calwood, she said, and this time it was purely her voice without the digital harmonics. I can't hold both the barrier and the ship systems. I have to choose. Choose the barrier. We'll deal with the dreadnought later. If I let go of the ship systems, they'll have full weapons capability. They could destroy this entire section of the nebula. Cal looked at her, at the woman who tried to kill him days ago, who was now carrying impossible life and making impossible sacrifices to protect it. What do you want to do? Well, for a moment, Tara's eyes cleared completely, showing him the person she'd been before the Codex changed everything. I want our child to have a chance to choose what kind of being it becomes. That's worth any risk. She closed her eyes and the energy barrier flared brighter than ever. But Cal could see the cost in her face. The strain of maintaining both defensive and offensive systems was pushing her toward complete neural collapse. Almost there, Kez called from ahead. Pod Bay is just around the next corner. But as they rounded that corner, they found themselves face to face with Director Vex himself, flanked by a dozen soldiers in the most advanced, powered armor Cal had ever seen. The Black Synod leader smiled his cold, clinical smile. Ms. Solene, he said conversationally, quite impressive, but I think this has gone on long enough. He raised his hand, revealing a device that Cal recognized with growing horror, a quantum disruptor capable of interfering with the biodigital processes that were keeping Tara alive. You have 5 seconds to lower your barrier and surrender, Vex continued. Or I activate this device and we see what happens to hybrid consciousness when its quantum coherence is disrupted. Tara's barrier flickered as she looked at the disruptor. You would risk killing the child? My dear, we have the ways of keeping it alive, even if you don't survive the process. The question is whether you want to make this easy or difficult. Cal's hand moved toward his weapon, but stopped when he saw the soldiers targeting lasers painting red dots across his chest. Even if he could draw and fire, he couldn't take down a dozen armored troops before they cut him apart. 3 seconds, Vex said. Tara looked at Cal, and in her eyes, he saw apology, determination, and love. Take care of our child, she whispered. Then she dropped the barrier and collapsed. The last thing Cal heard before the stun bolts hit him was the sound of escape pods launching and Kez's voice over the comm, promising that this wasn't over. It was going to be a very long 6 hours. The stun bolt's effects wore off gradually, consciousness returning to Cal in waves of disorientation and pain. He found himself strapped to a medical table in what appeared to be a Black Synod surgical bay surrounded by equipment that looked more suited to dissection than healing him. Bright lights blazed overhead, and the air hummed with the energy of quantum scanners mapping every molecule of his body. Ah, Mr. Riven, welcome back. Director Vex stood beside the table, still wearing that clinical smile that never reached his eyes. Behind him, a team of technicians prepared surgical instruments, while holographic displays showed detailed scans of Tatra's condition. Where is she? Cal demanded, testing the restraints that held him to the table. They were energy bonds impossible to break through physical force. Ms. Solene is in the next chamber receiving the best medical care our science can provide. The birth process has accelerated dramatically. She should deliver within the hour. Cal could hear sounds from the adjacent room. Machinery humming voices, calling out readings, and underneath it all, a sound that made his blood run cold. Tara was screaming. Let me see her, he snarled. I'm afraid that's not possible. The delivery is complicated. The child's biodigital nature is requiring some rather innovative surgical techniques. Vex consulted a datapad, his expression as calm as if he were discussing the weather. But you shouldn't worry. Even if the mother doesn't serve, we'll ensure the child receives proper care. The rage that flooded through Cal was unlike anything he had ever experienced. It wasn't just anger, it was something primal, protective, and absolutely murderous. I'm going to kill you, he said quietly. Perhaps, but not today. Vex turned to one of the technicians. How much longer until the extraction is complete? The child's biodigital matrix is interfering with our equipment. the technician reported. Every time we attempt surgical intervention, the quantum fields spike and overload our systems. It's like the child is defending itself. Then use the disruptor to suppress its consciousness temporarily. Sir, that could cause permanent neural damage. Acceptable losses. We need the child's quantum processing capabilities, not its personality. That was when the lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in a moment later, bathing the surgical bay in hellish red illumination. Alarms began wailing throughout the facility, and Cal could hear the distinctive sound of system failures cascading through the station's network. "What's happening?" Vex demanded. A technician's voice crackled over the communication array. "Sir, something's wrong with the station's AI. It's singing." The sound came through the speakers, then the same alien music Cal had heard when Tara first accessed the station's systems. But this time it was different, stronger, more complex. And underneath the digital harmonies, he could hear something that made his heart race, the sound of a child crying. "The birth," Vex breathed. "It's happening now." The energy restraints holding Cal flickered and died as power fluctuations swept through the facility. He rolled off the table just as the door to the adjacent chamber burst open, revealing Dr. Kez Rallo in a stolen Synod uniform, carrying something wrapped in biocontainment fabric. "Cal," Kez called. "We need to move now." Tara picked. Alive but barely. The birth trauma was significant. Kez's expression was grim as he handed Cal the bundle. "Take her. I'll get Tara." Cal looked down at what he was holding and felt the world shift around him. The child was impossibly small, but her eyes were open and aware in a way that no newborns should be. They were Tara's eyes, shifting colors that reflected light, like living opals, but there was an intelligence behind them that seemed ancient and new at the same time. "Hello, little one," he whispered. The child reached up with one tiny hand and touched his face. The moment their skin made contact, Cal's mind exploded with images, sensations, and thoughts that weren't his own. He saw the station's systems from the inside, every circuit, every data pathway, every quantum processor. He felt the child's consciousness touching his, curious and gentle and absolutely alien. And for just a moment he understood what she was. Not human, not Azorian, not artificial intelligence. Something entirely new, a bridge between worlds of thought that had never been able to communicate before. "Fascinating," Director Vex said, raising the quantum disruptor toward them. "The neural bonding is even stronger than we predicted." The weapon hummed to life, its disruptive field beginning to interfere with the quantum processes that kept the child's hybrid consciousness stable. Cal felt her pain as if it were his own, a feedback loop of agony that threatened to tear both their minds apart. But then Tyra was there, supported by Kez, but moving under her own power. Her face was pale and drawn from the trauma of birth, but her eyes blazed with protective fury. She raised one hand toward Vex, and the air around him began to shimmer with energy. "Don't," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that made the station's hull vibrate. "Touch my child." Vex's confident expression faltered as his weapon began to smoke and spark. The quantum bar disruptor's field inverted, turning its disruptive energy back on itself in a cascade failure that sent arcs of electricity dancing across the surgical bay. "Impossible," Vex gasped. "The birth trauma should have severed your connection to the biodigital matrix." "The connection isn't technological," Tara replied, moving closer despite her obvious pain. "It's biological, emotional, and you can't disrupt love with quantum fields." The child in Cal's arms began to glow with the same soft radiance as her mother, and suddenly every electronic system in the facility responded to her presence. But this wasn't the chaotic system overload that Tara had triggered before. This was precise, controlled, and absolutely purposeful. Emergency bulkheads sealed, trapping Vex and his technicians in the surgical bay. Life support systems activated in the escape pod bay. And throughout the station, a countdown began, 30 seconds until total system failure. "She's destroying the entire facility," Kez said in amazement. "She's protecting her family," Cal corrected as understanding dawned. The child wasn't just defending herself, she was ensuring that the research data, the surgical equipment, and everything the Black Synod had learned about hybrid consciousness would be lost forever. "Time to go," Tara said, leaning heavily against Cal as they made their way toward the escape pods. They reached the pod bay with seconds to spare. Cal strapped Tara into the medical couch while Kez activated the launch sequence. The child remained in Cal's arms, her glowing eyes watching everything with impossible intelligence. The escape pod ejected just as Research Station Omega tore itself apart from the inside. Through the viewport, Cal watched as explosions rippled through the facility's structure, consuming years of black synod research in a matter of moments. The other ships, he asked. Experiencing comprehensive system failures, Kez reported. The child's influence seems to extend across a significant distance. They won't be following us anytime soon. Cal looked down at the tiny being in his arms, then at Teirobo, who was watching them both with exhausted but happy eyes. Are you okay? I'm perfect, she said softly. We're all perfect. The escape pod's life support systems hummed quietly as they drifted through the nebula's swirling gases. For the first time in days, they were safe. Not just hidden, actually safe, protected by abilities that no conventional force could counter. Cal, Tyra said, after a long moment of peaceful silence, do you remember what I said on that rooftop when I tried to kill you? He smiled, remembering the rain and the failed weapon, and the moment everything changed. You asked if I had any final requests, and you told me to turn the safety off. She laughed softly, the sound mixing with the gentle hum of the pod's systems. When I pulled that trigger, I thought ending you would be the last thing I ever did. Cal shifted the child to one arm and reached for Tara's hand with the other. The moment their skin touched, he felt that familiar electric connection stronger now, enhanced by their shared bond with the impossible child they'd created together. Turns out, he said, it was the start of something. Tara squeezed his hand and their daughter because that's what she was now. Regardless of the technology that had created her, made a small sound that might have been contentment. Around them, the escape pod systems hummed in harmony with the child's biodigital presence, creating music that had never existed before. What happens now? Tara asked. Cal looked out at the vast expanse of space beyond the nebula, where countless worlds spun around distant suns. Somewhere out there were people who would fear their child, others who would try to use her, and some who might accept her for what she was, the first of something new. Now we find her a home, he said, somewhere she can grow up and choose what kind of being she wants to become. And us, Cal smiled, watching as the child's eyes shifted color and rhythm with both her parents' heartbeats. Us. We learn how to be a family, all three of us. The escape pod continued its gentle drift through the nebula, carrying the galaxy's first biodigital family toward an uncertain but hopeful future. Behind them, the wreckage of Research Station Omega glowed briefly before being swallowed by the swirling gases. And in the warm confines of the pod, a new kind of consciousness opened her eyes to a universe that had never seen anything quite like her before. The age of hybrids had begun. 3 days later, the rescue ship emerged from hyperspace like a silver needle, threading through the cosmic tapestry of the nebula verge. Cal watched it approach through the escape pod's viewport, his daughter sleeping peacefully in his arms, while Tara dozed in the medical couch beside him. The vessel bore the markings of the Free Traders Consortium, one of the few organizations in the galaxy that valued neutrality over profit and independence over political alignment. Kez had sent word through his underground network, and these were people who could be trusted to ask no questions and offer safe passage to the galaxy's outer rim. Contact established. The pod's communication array crackled. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the merchant vessel Aurora's Dream. Dr. Raylo sends his regards and an apology for the delay. Cal keyed the response. No apology necessary, Captain. We appreciate the pickup. Copy that. Stand by for docking procedures. As the larger ship's docking bay enveloped their small pod, Cal felt a moment of profound gratitude for the simple miracle of rescue. They were alive. They were together. And their daughter, the first of her kind, was sleeping soundly, her biodigital consciousness interfacing gently with the pod's systems, in dreams that were part organic and part quantum. How are you feeling? He asked Tara as she stirred. Better, she said, though Cal could see the exhaustion still etched in her features. The birth had taken more out of her than Kez's scans had indicated. Different but better. The connection to her it's like having a piece of my soul living outside my body. Cal understood exactly what she meant. Since the birth, he had felt a constant awareness of his daughter's presence, not intrusive but comforting. like knowing that somewhere in the vast darkness of space, a small light burned just for him. The docking sequence completed with a soft thud, and Captain Chen herself appeared at the pod's airlock. She was a woman in her 50s, with the kind of weathered features that spoke of decades spent in the void between stars. Her eyes took in their small family with professional assessment and something that might have been wonder. "You're the ones causing all the fuss," she said. It wasn't a question. "Depends on what you've heard," Cal replied carefully. "I've heard that every major power in the galaxy is looking for a man, a woman, and a child who don't officially exist. I've heard that ships are experiencing mysterious system failures whenever they get too close to your last known position. And I've heard that the Black Synod has placed a bounty on your heads that could buy a small moon." She smiled. "Sounds like my kind of passengers." They transferred to the Aurora's Dream without incident, though Cal noticed that the ship's systems hummed differently when his daughter was aboard harmonies that hadn't existed before, as if the vessel itself was learning to sing. Captain Chen assigned them a small but comfortable cabin in the ship's guest quarters far from the main crew areas. "We'll be jumping to the frontier worlds in 6 hours," she explained. "From there you'll have options. Colonies that don't ask too many questions, worlds where you can disappear if you want to, or—" She paused, studying them with those sharp eyes. "Other choices if you're interested." "What kind of other choices?" Tyra asked. "The kind that involve using your unique situation to help people instead of hiding from them." Chen's expression grew serious. "There are places in the galaxy where the boundaries between organic and artificial intelligence are causing problems. Conflicts that could escalate into full-scale wars if someone doesn't find a way to bridge the gap. Someone like your daughter could be the key to peace instead of just another weapon for the powers that be." Cal looked at the child in his arms, still so small, so fragile, yet already wielding abilities that could reshape galactic civilization. "She's barely 3 days old." "But she won't always be—" Almost, Chen replied, "and the question is, what kind of world do you want her to grow up in? One where she has to hide what she is, or one where she can use her gifts to make things better?" It was a question that would haunt Cal for years to come, but for now he was content to hold his daughter and watch the stars wheel past the viewport as the Aurora's Dream prepared for its jump to hyperspace. That night, as the ship sailed through the cosmic void toward the frontier, Tara sat up in their narrow bunk and placed Cal's hand gently on her stomach. He was about to ask what was wrong when he felt a familiar warmth, a subtle pulse that he recognized was shock. "Tara, the codex," she whispered, her eyes glowing softly in the darkness. "It's not finished with us." In the pocket of his jacket, the Axis Codex pulsed with renewed life, its quantum fields reaching out to touch the impossible consciousness developing within Tara once again. But this time was different. This time there was no surprise, no fear of the unknown, just recognition, the device acknowledging its successful work and beginning the next phase of its ancient programming. "Another child," Cal breathed. "Another chance," Tara corrected. "Another bridge between worlds that have never been able to understand each other." Their daughter stirred in her sleep, her biodigital consciousness touching theirs through the quantum field that connected all three of them. In that moment of contact, Cal saw flashes of possibility, worlds where humans and AIs worked together instead of fighting, colonies where hybrid children played beneath alien suns, a future where the barriers between organic and digital consciousness had dissolved entirely. The progenitors, he realized, they didn't just create the codex to solve reproduction problems. They created it to evolve civilization itself. And we're the first test subjects, Tyra said with a mixture of wonder and apprehension. The first family chosen to carry that evolution forward. Outside their cabin, the Aurora's Dream completed its hyperspace calculations and prepared to jump. But for a moment before the stars blurred into lines of light, Cal could have sworn they shifted just slightly, as if the universe itself was adjusting to accommodate something new, something that had never existed before. In his arms, his daughter opened her eyes and looked at him with ancient wisdom and newborn curiosity. Her tiny hand reached up to touch his face, and in that contact he felt the weight of destiny and the lightness of love. "What do we call her?" he asked quietly. Tara smiled, her hand still resting on the new life growing within her. "Hope," she said simply. "We call her Hope." And as the ship jumped to hyperspace carrying him, Carrying the galaxy's first biodigital family toward whatever future awaited them, the Axis Codex pulsed once more in harmony with two impossible heartbeats, one born of code chance and choice, the other just beginning its journey from possibility to reality. In the vast darkness between stars, something new had been born. Not just a child, but an idea. Not just a family, but a future. The age of unity had begun. And that's how love became humanity's greatest weapon, creating new life instead of destroying it. If stories where humans win through heart, not warfare, hit different for you, smash that subscribe button. Because when love rewrites the laws of physics, you know we're just getting started. See you in the next one.